One of the most enjoyable ways to fast track your dreams or to progress quickly is by finding a mentor. Today, we're going to talk about finding mentors and what makes a good mentor, and we'll see you on the other side.
Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Erik, Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time. So when you are trying to figure out something all by yourself, it just feels like bushwhacking. There's no trail, there's no path, there's nobody's footsteps to follow in. But if you can find somebody who's done what you want to do and have them be your mentor, you can just move so much more quickly because they will have already gone through the troubleshooting process before you, which doesn't mean you won't have any puzzles to solve. It just means you'll have reference material and you can have support. And anyway, we can get more into that, but I'm just curious, Erik, who has been somebody whose footsteps you have followed in or who's been a mentor to you?
Are we in specific areas? Because it's pretty wide ranging.
Yeah, really whatever comes to mind first.
Harold Prince.
Harold. Give a little intro for
So most of you won't know Harold Prince, but Harold Prince is a renowned Broadway producer, director, and he directed Phantom of the Opera. He directed and produced Fiddler on the Roof, all the way back to shows like Pajama Game, for those of you that know musical theater. Anyway, he's done mega shows. He's done quirky off-Broadway stuff. And he's a legend in the industry, and I just made it a point to become familiar with his work. And I read a book that he wrote that was out of print at the time. I don't remember how I even got a copy of it. But anyway, I don't know if you want to get into stories or things like that. But Harold Prince was a mentor of mine, mostly through just learning about him, but not. Eventually, I did meet him.
Mm-hmm. I think you took a picture of his shoes under the desk.
Do you want me to tell my Harold Prince story?
Sure.
Okay, so Harold Prince is this legendary Broadway producer, director, and I read a book that he wrote. God, I'm blanking on the title now. That's terrible. And at the time, I was in the process of trying to produce a Broadway show. It was going to be my first Broadway show. It didn't happen, but I was trying to make it happen, and I was reading his book, and I felt so encouraged by all of his stories about the uphill battle that it is to try and make something like that happen. And so I wrote him a letter. Somehow I had the office address for him, and I wrote him a good old-fashioned letter. And I said, Mr. Prince, thank you so much for writing this book and sharing your journey and being such an example of tenacity. I don't have the letter. Anyway, basically just saying, hey, thanks for writing this book. Here's where I'm at in my career. Here's what I'm trying to do. Thanks for helping pave the way so that I have some kind of a path to follow. It was quickly thereafter, maybe within the week, quickly by letter standards, I got a letter back from him. It said, I'd love to meet with you. Please reach out to my assistant to set up a time. Like, what? That was not the reason I wrote the letter, but a welcome experience. Anyway, so I reached out to his assistant, set up a time. His office was over by Rockefeller Center. We lived in New York City, so it wasn't a hardship to get there. And went to his office and met his assistant, who was very lovely, and escorted me into his office. And the thing that I remember about Harold Prince's office is that not only were the walls lined with trophies and awards.
Gotta put them somewhere.
The carpet was completely white. Maybe cream, but like very, very light white cream. I was like, this is like a place where like easy to stain your carpet. So and in the middle, he's got this kind of like not terribly big, but like beautiful wooden carved desk. And we walk in and he's kind of shuffling around, kind of getting settled. And I was like, I have got to capture this moment somehow. And, at the time I had a new iPhone. Those were,
Ooh, the iPhone
they were
4.
new. And I pulled it out and I'm trying to be super low key. So I'm sitting across from him and I take a picture of his shoes under the desk because I was like, I don't want to be the dork that's like, hey. And if I had been smart, I would have said, hey, before we go, do you mind if we take a picture? This was before the day, like selfies weren't like mainstream yet, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I have a picture and he had these lovely light tan loafers that did not stain his carpet. Anyway, so
Probably changed his shoes once he came upstairs after walking.
yeah, he has clean shoes that he slips into in the office. Anyway, so I have a really great photo of Harold Prince's shoes if anyone ever needs that for any reason.
But I love that you said, you paved the way, and also that what you found encouraging were the stories of how hard it is.
Yeah, that's true.
You said, this is hard. This is an uphill battle. And you're like, oh, okay. It's supposed to be
It's
like
normal.
this. And so that made him a great mentor. And I think this might be a good place to just review the 3 kinds of mentors that there are. There can be an in-person mentor that you actually got to sit down with him face to face, and he could be a mentor for you in that way.
I just want to clarify, when you say 3 kinds, this is according to our framework.
Yeah, according to how we like to talk about it.
How we categorize them.
Yeah, if you have more kinds of mentors, feel free to,
let us know.
Make a comment in in the YouTube comment section or in your review on the podcast.
That was a nice low-key plug for a review or
yeah,
rating.
If you want. Yeah.
Help other people find this and help them get encouraged by hearing our stories about how hard it is.
So as far it's true. And actually, we hope that we can do that with our book 7 at Sea, to say, like, look, it wasn't totally easy, but it was very much worth it to take this risk. So
totally,
that helps. So the 3 kinds of mentors.
Contradictions. I think that was the name of the book. Sorry, Harold Prince's book. I think it was called Contradictions.
Oh, awesome.
Sorry.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. So the 3 kinds of mentors, as far as we see it or how we like to classify it, are people that you know or can meet in person, and that's your in-person mentor. There's a virtual mentor, which maybe is someone that you are familiar with through social media or the internet or some anachronistic way. And then the third one, we call it a time travel, which is kind of an extreme version of a virtual
historical
mentor. Yeah, it's somebody who maybe isn't even living anymore and you just read their book. But those people can be your mentors. And one of the things that I love about it is it might not even be that they're doing exactly the same thing that you are planning to do, but maybe there's somebody who is trailblazing into new territory. And you say, where I am and what I'm doing, I'm also a trailblazer. It's in a different arena, but I can look to other trailblazers and learn from them. So sometimes you can find someone who literally is doing exactly what you want to do, and you can learn from them and see what you want to copy or imitate and what you want to do differently and modify.
I have so many thoughts on this.
Oh, please.
Okay. First of all, I'll just tell, I have mentors in all 3 categories right this very moment in my life. By my bed, I have 2 books from historical mentors. I'm reading a biography of Leonardo da Vinci. I'm still in the first 100 pages, but I'm learning a ton. Fascinating man. I'm also reading a biography of Albert Einstein. Much more accessible, just historically, but also a lot of it, I'm not a physicist yet, but I love learning about these men and how. And I also have I haven't even cracked it open, but I have a biography of Elton John and a memoir by Bono. So all men, incidentally, but I'm a man, so there's that.
They are your mentors.
Men, they put the men in mentors. There we go. There we go. So those are my historical mentors right now. I would say one of my top virtual mentors right now is a guy named Alex Hormozy, and he's an entrepreneur and a business coach, and he puts out tons of content. Him and his wife put out tons of content on social media, and we also have a few books that he has written that I'm reading for each one. I've read each of them twice. The second one I'm reading for a second time now, and I'm learning so much from them. And And I do realize that whenever they talk about how hard it is and how you need to be tenacious and push through, I find that the most helpful, the most encouraging. And one of the books that he wrote, he's literally telling about how he's just had his back up against the wall. They're about to go broke. He's got a 6-figure bill that he doesn't know how to pay, that he just found out he has to have. He just found out he has it, and he's got 30 days to figure out how to create
6 figures.
6 figures in profit, and he's never done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not like, oh yeah, I've been here before, and I just have some ideas. Like, he had no clue, and I found that to be so encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
So encouraging. So there's that. And I was just I like to read like maybe a page or two every morning while I eat breakfast. And so I was reading one this morning, and he's talking about mentors. He's talking about Warren Buffett. And for those of you who are not financially, you're not finance people, Warren Buffett, most well-known investor of our time, I guess probably on some technical level, the most successful investor ever. And he was wanting to go, he had a mentor, and he was trying to volunteer to work for free. Mm. And I forget the name of the guy. I read it this morning, but I don't have it on the tip of my tongue. And the guy said, and Warren Buffett was volunteering to work for free. And he said, "You're overpriced." He's like, "How could I be lower cost?" He's like, "Because you're going to take up a lot of work. Because I'm going to be training you, and teaching you is going to cost me a lot in terms of time, energy, effort. And so even though I'm not paying you, you're still expensive because you're going to be a drain or a drag on my time and effort." And I thought that was really interesting to say, because I think that's great advice to say, hey, go out there and volunteer to work for somebody for free to learn. It's, learn before you earn is a really important principle when it comes to being a mentee. Don't try to earn money right out of the gates, even if people are telling you, hey, charge what you're worth, this or that, but just be willing to learn. But even when we volunteer to work for free, we can still be expensive. And I feel like that landed for me this morning. And I feel like the principle is get yourself to the best position possible to be helpful to the other person and to be able to give instead of take. Because just because you're willing to work for free and be mentored at no cost in terms of dollars, there can still be a cost. And so I'm trying to think of a good example of this, of how to be sort of a well-qualified volunteer.
That's tricky when you're just right at the beginning, but some people are willing to make that investment. And one example I can think of is in the sailing world, when people are racing boats. They're so often looking for other people who are willing to come out and be crew on a Saturday morning and basically just be the ballast on the boat or be willing to hike out. And, it takes time to learn.
Rail meet, I think is what they call it.
It takes time to learn how to do that stuff and you develop friendships. And, of course, they hope, they'll get good at it and they'll keep coming and we'll be a team and we'll just get better and better at doing this together and we'll have fun and everybody learns along the way. But yeah, I love that Alex Hormozi is one of the mentors. One of the things I love about that is that he is probably 15 years younger than us. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're going to be a good mentee, someone who's receiving the mentorship, you have to be open. You have to be humble and curious and willing to learn. Even if that person is,
Leonardo da Vinci or a 35-year-old pumped up punk. Alex is a super
guy.
Muscle.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So I think that's important. I also am thinking about sometimes with mentors, they have ideas for you because they're more experienced, or maybe they even just believe in you more than you believe in yourself, possibly also based on their experience.
I just came up with a new category of mentors.
Oh, all right. Epiphany.
Ta-da. This is, if there's a fourth kind, paid mentors. Because talk about, if you want to make yourself affordable, to be better, to be lower cost than free, if you pay somebody to be your mentor, they're like, oh, okay, now I'll give you some of my time. I'll give you some of my attention. And we've hired some paid mentors, and
Yeah.
AKA coaches.
Yeah.
You can hire a mentor, and they will teach you, and you, because
it's so much faster.
And it's so much faster. I mean, I just think of, I don't know if we've talked about this openly, but you and I were looking at buying a small business in the last quarter, and the one business there were two that we were looking at, and one we decided to pass on, and the other one we made an offer and it didn't go through. But we hired an advisor. We asked somebody who we know and trust, a friend of ours who recommended this person, and we hired them to advise us through this process. And it wasn't cheap, but it was money so well spent.
Yeah, even though we didn't buy the business, like we knew why exactly. We knew exactly why we were making the offer we did. We were considering all kinds of contingencies that we never would have thought of.
It was a sailing business, for the record.
And we learned so much about how to buy a business and how to sell a business. And, it's not going to be our last rodeo. We'll try again. But yeah, I felt that we really got our money's worth in education in that, because we were paying this person, he was willing to spend so much time explaining the spreadsheets to us.
Yeah, and doing research and being on calls with us and advising us. And even though we didn't buy the business, I feel like we could have bought one of them, I think, and it would have been a bad choice.
Yeah,
and I think that the money that we paid him saved us
from making
an exponential amount of what it would have cost us in the long run if we had bought the other business. And so I think this kind of mentor or coach can really, not only do they help you do things, accomplish things, but they can also prevent you from making all kinds of mistakes that can be very costly in a variety of ways, all the ways, emotionally, physically, financially, all those ways. And so it is a way to shortcut.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we only think about the traditional concept of an education is you pay to go to a school, a university.
Once again, you're paying for mentors.
And that's it. But it's so hard for us to say, oh, well, outside of college tuition or private school or other kinds of schools that you pay for, or public school that you pay for with your taxes, it's so hard for us to take that concept of paying money for somebody to teach you something. We think about it if it's music lessons maybe or dance lessons, like the arts, it's okay to pay for that sort of stuff. But for some reason, at least for me, in my perspective, it seems like most of the people that are in my life, paying somebody to teach you something feels unusual unless it's in one of those, in the arts or in formal education. Anyway, I don't know if maybe I'm alone in that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. You listener will have to decide what you think about that. But what we have learned from being willing to move beyond our bias is that, wow, we can learn so much faster when we're willing to pay someone for their time. And we haven't always. I think the majority of our mentors have not been paid mentors, but that has been a major discovery in the last few years that we can really learn so much faster when someone is going to give us their undivided attention because we're paying for it.
And it's really been interesting to watch our son, who has recently hired a mentor. He's hired a personal trainer and I don't want to get too much into his personal life, but he's, he wants to bulk up and he's a healthy guy, no reason to be bashful about his physique, but he's like, I want to do something that I don't know how to do. And I don't know how to teach him. I don't know how to help him bulk up. I'm not a bulky guy, but he's going all in on this. And I think, and we talked about this a little bit in
the previous episode.
What was the episode about that? We were talking about, it was
who, not how.
Who, not how. Yeah, this is classic who, not how stuff. And the idea being that when you pay for, and this is not a pitch for coaching or anything like that. We're not trying to say like, oh,
Yeah, if you want to coach with us, sign up.
If you want to coach with us, fine. But I'm just saying, when you pay for, whether it's a personal trainer or a business advisor business acquisition advisor or a piano teacher or whatever it is, when you pay attention. And I think that's the key thing. And when you pay attention, you actually get better results. And so contrary to my belief for a long, long time, like, oh, if I can get somebody to teach me for free, that's great. But if I'm paying somebody to teach me or to coach me or to mentor me, I actually think I get a lot more out of it because I'm literally invested.
So the ultimate hack would be to pay attention, even if you're not paying.
That's the ultimate hack. And most of us don't have that level of discipline or willpower to do it. But if you can, hey,
do it.
Do it.
Yeah. Read those books, take those notes, do the self-reflection, rebuild your habits, stack your habits, and, be guided by those mentors. Let them pave the way, pay attention. And I also think one of the things that I was saying earlier is that mentors sometimes believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And I think I felt this especially in my teenage years when I might not feel like I was capable of something. I remember I had a couple of teachers in high school that just took a moment. It wasn't like I was going back to them every 6 weeks for an update, but they took a moment with me to say, you're really good at this. You're better than you think. Like, stick with it. I'm watching you and I know you can do it. And that made a huge difference to me. And one of the things I love that you say, Erik, is when you're looking for a mentor, you want to find somebody who makes it sound simple and doable. Not to contradict this idea that you were encouraged to know how hard the path might be. We do want to know how hard the path might be, but someone who's saying, you could totally do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take discipline. It's going to take effort and persistence on your part, but it's completely achievable.
You know my favorite story about this?
Yeah.
Should I tell it?
Yeah, go for it.
So, where to start?
You wanted to.
It's the whole thing about climbing El Cap. And if you haven't listened to, or if you haven't heard me talk about this before, I rock climbed when I was a teenager, gave it up when I became a dad, sat on the sidelines of rock climbing for 20 years. And then after we came back from living on a sailboat for a year, I thought, holy cow, if I can do that, what else can I do? And it revived this dream of wanting to climb El Cap. And if you've listened to some of our episodes, I know you've heard me talk about this, but it just seemed impossible. As a 40-year-old man, kind of out of shape, all the things, never been to Yosemite before, my gear is obsolete. Anyway, I met a guy at a conference who's like, oh, you should talk with my brother. We'd been back from sailing, and he's like, he's fixing up a sailboat right now in his barn. He's done El Cap, a whole bunch of times. And so you should talk with him. And we did, we emailed back and forth. And then eventually he lives up in Utah, or here in Utah, up in Midway. And we were in Midway and we went to visit with him. He invited us over for dinner, had a great evening. And I think had we been to Zion and done a class? I can't remember. Sorry,
yeah,
I'm not doing a good job telling
anyway,
this story.
What did he say though?
But he said, oh, he says, it's totally doable. You just need a little bit of this, you need a little bit of that, you need a little of that. And we walk out into his garage and he's like, I got some gear. If you need to borrow any of this, you could take this or that. And he's like, yeah, you got to get a few things in place, but it's totally doable.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
Whereas the guy we had paid was like, no, you can't do it on your first try, and you're going to need to do all this training. And
so yeah, to contradict
really
ourselves,
hard.
We had paid to take a class in how to do these kinds of climbs. And the guy was like, you've probably got a couple years of work ahead of you before you'll be at this level to do this sort of thing. And he was definitely making sure that we knew that he was the smartest guy in the room. And I'm also pretty sure he had never actually done it. Is that safe?
I don't know. All I know is that he didn't meet this requirement of making it us feel encouraged and like this was doable.
Yeah.
Which is what we were looking for in a mentor. If that person does not give that feedback or that vibe, then you're like, okay, on to a new mentor.
And I will say, as much as I'm talking about Leonardo da Vinci and Albert Einstein and people that are not in the areas that I'm striving to excel. You can have all kinds of mentors and be encouraged by all kinds of people's lives, but when you find somebody who has done the exact thing that you want to do, what they say carries so much power.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for example, this guy that we hired, I don't know if he'd done the route that I wanted to do. He had a lot less credibility with me than the guy that I met in Yosemite who had just come off of this route and I said, how did you do it? And he says, buy this book, follow the program, you can do it. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing. And I 100% committed to it and I did it. And so I think there's a lot to be said for finding mentors that have massive amounts of credibility, that they have actually done the thing that you want to do. And I'm flattered to sometimes be on the receiving end of this. Like when I'm on calls with people about going sailing, they will say, you have done the exact thing that I want to do. So when I talk to them about going sailing or I invite them on one of our trips, they know that they're going to be learning from somebody who has done the thing that they want to do. Not something like it, not something in the same zone, but the exact thing. And that can be very powerful. So if you can find a mentor that is willing to share, teach, talk about the thing, about the thing that they've done that you also want to do, that's pure gold right there.
That's golden. So keep your eye out. Do find some mentors. Say who else is doing this and start giving them access to your brain space. Like spend time thinking about their words or following their story. Or if there's somebody that you can meet with in person, get in that space with them and you'll find that you're going to get so many more quality ideas and so much encouragement, and you'll find some momentum happening, moving you closer and closer to where you're trying to get. So I really appreciate this conversation on mentors. I hope you can be a mentor for others, because whenever you go for something that's really important to you, other people are watching, and it does give them permission to step outside of their lane and do something that they're actually really passionate about.
Find a mentor, be a mentor.
Exactly. What could go right?
What could go right? Hey guys, it's Erik. Before we wrap up, I just want to give you a few takeaways from a recent trip that we had to the Bahamas that was just phenomenal. And then just so you know what's going on for this fall and early next year, we do have a couple of spots on trips this fall. In fact, in September, I'm going to Italy, September 28th. And unfortunately, some crew members, they had a death in the family. They can't join. So I have 2 cabins. If you want to join, I know it's super last minute, but if you're interested in sailing the beautiful islands of Italy, let me know. We've got room for you. Happy to make that work. Also, I'm going to be doing a trip in December. And the first week of December, it's going to be to either the Bahamas or the Sea of Cortez, Mexico. Just finalizing that here. But if you want to go sailing right before the holidays, then let me know. And then January is sold out. February is sold out. In March, we do have some availability for some trips in the Caribbean. And then in the summer, we're going to be jumping and doing some trips overseas in Europe. So let me know what you're interested in. Drop me a line, hello@theawesomefactory.nyc, or go to our website, theawesomefactory.nyc/sailing, and we'll get you taken care of. Thanks. All right, Marie, you're up.
My expectations, I just didn't know how much better it would be than I even could have imagined. Everything about watching the boat, the water, the sky, the different places we went, it just was like, I would like to live every day like this. Fun. I mean, every way to describe it, that's what it was. And my 2 words are a unique adventure. I couldn't have planned for it to be what it was. Just so unique from anything that I've ever done. I've sailed, boated, snorkeled, but everything, the whole experience was absolutely just splendid.
Over the top.
Over the top. There you go.
Over the top.
Yeah.
Okay, that works.
That's good.
Awesome.
That's good. I like it.
Love it.